All right, this is Unit 9.4. We're doing some nationalism here in this unit here at this point. We have spent a good bit of time looking at some isms already for this unit. First, we looked at conservatism, which again, with conservatism, you always have a tendency to favor what has been in place. Okay, our big three pillars were having a strong king, we had a strong nobility, and then a strong church. We then looked at liberalism, which celebrated the equality and liberty of the individual. An individual should obtain rights, and the government exists to protect the individual and not give them what they want, but to make sure that their rights are protected. And it's basically what comes out of the Enlightenment. So John Locke, Voltaire, all of those guys, the freedoms they talked about is really what we see with liberalism. So in hand with liberalism, not the same, but often working together with that is this new ism called nationalism, which, if you ask me, nationalism is the most fun of these isms because, and I think it's the easiest to understand, as you'll probably see. So nationalism is going to be a driving force behind many revolutions, as we'll see in this unit, and then to the big one that we'll see in 9.5. So again, 9.4, nationalism. Make sure that, again, as we go through this unit, that you are keeping track of which ism is what, because that's your key to success. Let me see, where are we pushing the button? We go. Okay, hey, USA, right? Look at this guy. Okay, the big thing that you need to know, first of all, about nationalism, if I can find my pen, there it is. The big word here is Pride. That spells pride. Okay, you can barely see it, but pride in your country and your belonging. That's what we see with nationalism. So this guy who has a very skin-tight outfit, maybe a little too tight if you ask me, whatever, he has pride in his country, and that's the basics of what nationalism is. This in Kentucky, right? We're Kentucky proud. You see this on all the food, which is delicious, and it's made here in Kentucky, and it's awesome, and you see the quilts and the blankets and all of the things. I don't know why I'll go to quilts and blankets. It's really cold in my house right now, whatever, I'm sorry. But again, nationalism, there is a pride in your nation and your culture. And then finally, make a lot of allusions to sports. So you see it in the sports world, and I promise I was not here when this happened. I don't think. But this was in 2012 when Kentucky won the national title, which they will probably never do again. But anyway, Kentucky wins the national title, and immediately to show pride in your country, you go out and flip cars and burn couches and tear down stop signs. It's the natural, logical thing to do. Whatever. The big key is this pride element. Now, when we put it in the context of AP Euro, what is nationalism? The big thing you need to know with nationalism is that it is a people group that is self-defined, okay? They are specific. Ooh, look, the arrow moves. That's so cool. I love these arrows. Okay, they should rule themselves with its own political boundaries, okay? So a nation should rule itself. And what I mean by a nation is that it has a common language, common history, common traditions that brings about unity. Let's think about Madison Central, okay? We have common boundaries, right? We have a boundary, it's our school, but we have a common language. I don't know what language we speak, I guess it's English, whatever. We have a common history, okay? For those of you who have been at the school for a while, you have a history with the people you go to. You know where things are. Traditions, okay? We have different traditions as a school. So we have that certain pride. Again, that's the word we're going to use here. I'm sorry that this is like coming up in a really bad spot. Oh, there it is, pride. Okay, pride is the thing that we're dealing with, and that pride can motivate you to do certain things. Now, liberals are going to really support this idea because, think about it. Having your own country, your self-defined government, is that not being able to exercise your own liberty. That someone is not coming in and telling you what to do. That's basically what they saw a lot in, say, the Austrian Empire. Even when France had an empire and Napoleon took over for a while and sent his brothers and sisters to take over places. So it's a big, big concept that is supported by liberals, this nationalism thing. And its immediate origins, you could say French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, because when France was dominating, You know, it was cool to be French, right? You waved the flag, France, yay, woo, exciting. At the same time, when they took over places in Central Europe and, say, for example, like Naples or other Italian city-states, Spain, for instance, these places were not very friendly to a French Bourbon outsider telling them what to do. And they're like, hey, we know how to rule ourselves. Why can't we rule? So that, again, is a big concept here with couple of nationalists. These names, I don't know if you really need to know them. The concept, maybe here you do. Johann Gottfried Herder, that's him in the wig and the ominous gray background, whatever. But he thought that all groups had something unique about them. It's this thing called a Volksgeist, so he was German. But there was a distinct national character, and that culture should not compromise the things that make them unique. He also thought that no one culture was superior to another, which, you know, through history you can say that that certainly has not been followed by many people. So he's actually regarded as the father of modern nationalism. Good for him. You have a second guy named Johann Gottlieb Fichte. Let's call him Mr. F, okay? For you Arrested Development fans. Mr. F. That's what he's going to be. Basically what his idea was is that the German culture was the best, and he actually was extraordinarily anti-Semitic. His idea was that in order to get rid and to correct the Jewish problem, because there was a large Jewish population living in what would be Germany, he thought the only way to get rid of Jewish ideas was to pretty much decapitate the Jews, literally, like cut off their heads and then give them other heads. So that would get rid of their ideas. So good luck with that. But these are just two names, really focused on nationalism, whatever. Okay, now we got two sections of this today. We're going to look at the national revolutionary movements, different places in Europe that revolt from 1820 to 1829. We'll look at that really briefly. There's one in particular that you'll need to know. And then the last part today, we're going to look at 1830 and why that was such a huge year for revolutions in Europe. Start with 1829, or actually 1820. Okay, 1820 was a big year in Europe because there were little small revolutions that went on. These were not so relevant, but you know they were still happening. Obviously, if you look at the map here, Spain was a really hot place for revolution, and if you remember, the Spanish were ruled by the Bourbons, who, of course, are native to France. So the Spanish did not like Bourbons sitting basically in their territory and telling them what to do. So they started to rebel. This revolt was put down quite quickly, but it's a key point because at this point England did not agree with the handling of the revolt. So they rebelled from the concert of Europe. They withdrew, and that's something to keep in mind. Oh, sorry, I just burped. You probably didn't hear it, but whatever. In Italy, you have a couple of revolts in Naples, and then Piedmont, which is not on the map, but Piedmont's going to be right up in here. They're revolting, and the Austrian troops put that down quite easily. So again, Austrian Empire is at the forerunner of putting down these revolutions, but these three are wanting to revolt due to outside influence, outside rule, trying to rule themselves, thinking that they have the ability to. In 1821 to 29, though, this is the key national revolutionary movement. It's the Greek Revolution. There's a common theme developing. If you remember, the Ottoman Empire controls southeastern Europe. It is slowly withdrawing and crumbling upon itself. And within a century of this moment, it's not going to exist anymore. So the question is, who's going to fill the gap? The Ottoman Empire was known as the sick man of Europe. Okay, so that's the Ottoman Empire. Remember, they are the Muslim empire, but they are withdrawing. So it's what's called the Eastern question, was who was going to fill the gap in there and take that land. And we're going to address that a little more later in our next unit. But in the meantime, in Greece, which was not its own national company, the Greeks began to rebel against the Muslims and trying to kick the Ottoman Empire out. Well, England, France, and Russia decided to go in and help Greece fight for their independence. Now, wait a minute. This goes completely against everything we talked about in terms of the concert of Europe putting down revolutionary movements. Why are they supporting the Greeks? It's like the most hypocritical move ever. But think about it. So much of European culture, think about the Renaissance, neoclassical art, all these things we've discussed, a lot of it owes itself to, and its roots to Greece. So basically, the concert of Europe rationalized the move by saying, well, Greeks are Christians, Ottomans are Muslims, Greece is like the foundation of our civilization, the birthplace, the roots of all this democratic movement, which is ironic because they didn't support democracy, the concert of Europe, whatever. But they rationalized it that way and said, okay, we're going to go in and help the Greeks fight. And they win. Okay, Greece wins their independence, and in the Treaty of Adrianople in 1829, Greece is going to be recognized as its own national country. Now, this is big, obviously because Greece is there, and yay, Greece, and that's exciting. However, other countries are going to look at this and say, well, here's a successful revolution. Why can't we cause change in our own country? Remember, none of this, maybe the exception of this revolution, is country fighting country. It's going to be country fighting itself. And it's going to be trying to put down its own trouble in its own country. So, we're seeing a shift right here with the Greek Revolution. And that shift itself, well, here's a map. I was on a nice roll, and then I've got this map. I don't know, 1820s. Revolutions. St. Petersburg, you see up there at the top right, that is the result of the Decemberists Revolt. Remember when the rope snapped and they didn't die? Well, I don't know why I made my died noise. Whoever or whatever. You see the German Confederation there in the from the bold red line. Crap going down in Spain. Blah blah blah. We got on. Now here we go. 1830, the big year in terms of national movements. And when I say national movements, again, nationalism is fueling this, and working hand in hand with it is liberalism. So again, make sure that you understand the connection between the two. I explained that earlier. Make sure you understand that. We're going to start in France. Where else would you start for a revolution? You're going to find that we're going to finish this class and cover about 6 French revolutions. It never ends. It's just crap all the time. So this is the second big one. Okay, France has become a conservative state again. You've got this guy named Charles X, who became king after Louis XVIII died. He's his brother, another brother, right? And he is even more so on the divine right shift. Okay, he's like, or ship, I guess, whatever. But he says, hey, God gave me the right to rule, so you shut up and don't tell me what to do, basically. Okay, well, the middle class of France, they're not all about that. So a revolt rises up, forces Charles X to abdicate, which means gives up his throne. He had done many things. He'd taken away voting rights. He wanted to change the flag. He did all this dumb stuff. So he abdicates and gives up. Well, at that point, it started this huge revolt. Metternich actually said that when France sneezes, the rest of Europe catches the cold. And I love that quote, because basically whenever France does something in terms of sparking a liberalistic or nationalistic revolt, the rest of Europe's going to see it and follow suit. Remember, it was the quest of the Congress of Vienna to keep all that stuff from happening in their own country. So we're going to see that here in a few minutes. So France. Now, here's kind of the scene of what a revolt looks like. The French, when they revolt, they start to do something in order to keep the army at bay. You don't really see it well here, but we're going to see it later. The people start to build barricades, and we'll talk about this in 1848 or 9.5. But it's an interesting strategy to try to keep local control away from the army and the ruling classes. So we'll get into that. Anyway, in France, this guy rises to the top, and his name's Louis Philippe. Okay, here he is with his 7 chins. They're hidden by his turtleneck, whatever. Trust me. They also have a lot of cartoons of him where he looks like a pear. Like they have him I mean, if I had to draw a pair, like, I don't know, like that, and like you have your little stem here. I don't know. What do you think? Kind of, can you see it? I see it. I don't know. My art is so beautiful. Let me erase it. There goes the pair. And then erase the line. Okay, there it goes. Now, Louis Philippe becomes the new king in France. Okay, so they got another king. However, he comes in under a constitutional monarchy, and he's known as the bourgeoisie king. So he's going to be someone who directly supports the middle class. He's going to take rights away from the nobility, but at the same time, he's not going to do anything to assist the poor. So you got to keep in mind, these guys who come in who kick out these conservative kings like Charles X here, he's not going to be, donuts for everybody, candy bars and marshmallows for all you peasants. No, he's not going to give all the peasants anything, all right? He's going to support the factory owners. Remember, the ones that Karl Marx said are the enemy, the ones that you rebel against. So if you've got that good versus bad thing going in your mind and this guy's going to support the poor people and help you out, no. That's not going on at all. So make sure that you keep that clear, is that he's going to favor the upper middle class and go directly against the nobility and the poor. Okay? So that's in France. So again, Metternich says, when France sneezes, the rest of Europe. So here's the rest of Europe. Nope, here is Louis XIV's family tree. Randomly, I do not know why this is here. Okay, there's a Bourbon family. Let's draw some things. Okay, just to give you a connection here. Richelieu was with Louis XIII, and then you have the Sun King. Look at my pretty son. Oh, that's beautiful. And then you have, let's see here, let me find. Here's Louis XV, and then Louis XVI. See, they're not like directly related, and then he gets like decapitated. So I'm going to erase half of his head. There we go. And then Louis XVIII becomes king when Napoleon's gone, and then Charles X, and then Louis Philippe comes in over here. I think that's him. Okay, so, and he's like a cousin, so he's on the other line, but he is like distantly related as royalty. So again, they're not kicking out royalty totally. Kind of an interesting point. Here we go. In Italy, remember, Italy is not unified. Okay? So they're Italian, right? They're wanting to connect all their city-states together. Not city-states, but their territories, their kingdoms, their principalities. Connect them together and have a one Italy. And this guy named Giuseppe Mazzini is going to lead an organization called Young Italy to go on a quest for unification. Okay? Again, nationalism, pride in your culture, kick out all the foreign occupiers and have one country. Well, Austria comes in, bam, revolts, is crushed. Sad times for the Italians. But this ridiculous Italian word, which I am not going to pronounce, means resurgence of the Italian spirit. And it's going to continue on, and the dream of united Italy is not going to die. Okay? Even though the revolution at this point is crushed. Now, in Germany, there had been rumblings after the July Revolution, which is in France, okay, when Louis Philippe took over, that there were rumblings for unification, okay, that maybe if France is trying to improve their government, that Germany can unify its states and have a national government. Well, didn't work. Okay, Austria again puts it down, and this guy, you know him well. This is von Metternich. Okay, again, the rule of putting von in the middle of your name. It's all important. Von Metternich, exciting times. He puts it down. Austria wins again, and Austria's dream of keeping Europe conservative and keeping the nationalists and liberals down again works. Okay, any sort of rumblings of revolution in Germany. A couple other examples: Belgium and their waffles. Listen, I don't think I included Waffle House in my top restaurants at the beginning of the year, but come on, you can't go wrong with Waffle House. So when you're in college, go out, eat a Waffle House at 3:30 in the morning, and tell me that it was not a bad idea. Okay, well, it could. Depends on the WAF files. Whatever. Anyway, Belgium. Belgium actually in 1815 had been merged with Holland, which was a Dutch state, okay, part of the Netherlands. So they had totally lost their independence. And the Belgians, who are distinct from many of the Dutch, they're Catholic, they're just a different culture. The July Revolution, again, inspires them maybe to have their own place in their own country. And they started to rebel against the Dutch there and they were actually helped. The French and the British actually helped them, and they at that time did not have anything to lose from Belgian independence. So again, look at this. We've got a split in the concert of Europe. We had the Austrians, primarily the Austrians, okay, who are still very, very conservative. But if you look at what's happening here, with their help in Greece and now Belgium, France, and Britain are going very nationalistic, okay, and trying to help that. So you're seeing a shift going on here. In other news, Nicholas I of Russia crushes a movement in Poland to try to establish an independent Poland. That doesn't go down. Basically, also, sorry, missed the ending here. Belgium succeeds. Okay, so they re-establish their independence. We're going to celebrate. Yay, Belgium. Good job. Poland, not so much. So another key to see is let me see if I can erase some of this. I need a bigger eraser because that's sad. My index finger is not doing well enough. Anyway, you're seeing a difference here. West Europe, okay, nationalistic. A little bit of liberalism. Okay, we're seeing that. Remember, middle class in France. We've seen that reform in England. But in Eastern Europe, let's go EE, it's still very, very conservative with Austria-Hungary and Metternich, and then Nicholas I now in Russia being extremely conservative. You see the differences starting to build. And what we're going to see the next century in Europe is a distinct difference between Western Europe and Eastern and Central Europe. And that misunderstanding, if you will, and the different values are eventually going to lead to trouble. And that trouble is World War I. But we are still we are still a long way from that. So again, big key for nationalism, just to review, pride in your country, having your own government for your own people, and really all this idea of empire is bad, right? The ironic thing as we continue to go on is how while Britain supports nationalist movements in Europe, they are totally going to ignore the idea as they build up their empire. But more on that later. Thanks for listening to 9.4. 9.5 and the close of this unit is coming soon. Adios and goodbye.